तस्मै नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवा साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त वधूसुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा। I'd like to welcome all of you all back to our Gita classes. Today we are going to be continuing from the 5th chapter of the Gita, which is entitled as Action and Krishna Consciousness. And we're going to be discussing a very important section of the 5th chapter today, which is the section of equal vision. So the first two sections of the 5th chapter we already discussed, which is stay in this world and the three doers, which we discussed last time. And today we're going to be discussing the concept of equal vision. So just to quickly summarize what we spoke last time, we were talking about the concept of the three doers. We began by talking about the Krishna describing to Arjuna how we are all living in a city of 9 gates. So the body is considered to be a city of 9 gates. There are 9 holes in the body, and these 9 holes are considered to be gates by Krishna. So so after describing the city, Krishna is saying, I am not the city. I'm living in the city, but I am not the city. That means I'm living in this body, but I am not the body. And I'm not even the proprietor of the body. I'm not the proprietor of the city. And I'm not the controller of the city. I'm not the controller of the body. And the three modes control so much. The Supreme Lord sanctions it. We are only responsible for our choice or our desires, basically. So we spoke about the concept of the three doers. The first doer is the Atma, who chooses, who desires something. The second doer is the Paramatma, who sanctions the desire based on whether we deserve it or not. And the three modes of material nature are the third doer, who actually carry out the sanction of the Paramatma, they carry out the orders of the Paramatma, the instructions of the Paramatma. So these are the three doers we spoke about. Today, we're going to go into another deeper discussion of what is known as equal vision. So essentially here, we're talking about the idea of Nitya Sannyas. So if you remember, we discussed the difference between Nitya Sannyas and Karma Sannyas. Karma Sannyasi is someone who gives up actions. But Nitya Sannyasi is someone who does not give up actions, but gives up the thought that I did it and the fruits behind the actions. So Nitya Sannyasi is considered to be a great soul who apparently seems to be in this world, but is not of this world. So we discussed in great detail about what it means to be in this world and not of this world. We spoke of the mindset of Nitya Sannyas. So now we're going to go deeper into the idea of what happens if you live life as a Nitya Sannyasi. A Nitya Sannyasi is like a coconut. What is a coconut? The coconut has, of course, it's a very interesting thing, Um, just on the lighter side, um, people born in Britain, in London, and but who are Indians, they call coconuts because they are brown outside and white inside. Same thing in America. So externally you're brown, but internally you're white. So what does it mean internally white? Essentially means the heart is completely Western and the body is, Indian, basically. So here, of course, in America, there is a terminology which says ABCD, American born confused AC, So, but in this particular case, the context is very different from what we're discussing. A Nitya Sannyasi is like a coconut, means that a Nitya Sannyasi, so the coconut has a very interesting shell, isn't it? So if you look at the shell of the coconut is the hard shell, the soft pulp inside. The soft pulp is stuck to the coconut, to the hard shell, isn't it? But after some time, when the coconut gets ripe, the soft pulp which is stuck on the shell of the coconut starts becoming dried up. It starts becoming detached from the shell of the coconut. And at some point, you shake the coconut, you can actually hear the pulp shaking. And that's called kopra in Hindi and in colloquial language in India. So a Nitya Sannyasi is like that coconut, which has become detached from the shell within. So he's living in the body, but he's not attached to the body. A normal person in this world is like a coconut attached to the shell intricately. That means a normal person is like a person who is living in this body, very attached to this body, very attached to everything connected to this body. But a Nitya Sannyasi is someone who is staying within this body, but is completely detached from the body. And that's what makes a person, that is what such a person is called as a Jivan Mukta. What is the meaning of the word Jivan Mukta? The word Jivan Mukta means someone is living in this world but liberated. Everyone wants liberation. There is this whole movement of women's liberation. There are so many songs about birds flying free. Everyone wants freedom. But when the reality of death comes, people are not ready. People say, I need more time. India wanted freedom. So much struggle. India has got the freedom that it wants. But are we actually free? A lot of us, we are still enslaved in the mind. So the idea of moksha, the idea of liberation means at many levels. There's freedom from troubles, diseases, problems. So it's not just, external. So Krishna here is also, when he's talking to Arjuna about liberation, he's talking about a liberated soul. He's also talking about liberation from the wrong mentalities, freedom from mistaken identities, freedom from misconceptions. Once all those misconceptions go away, while living, a person is liberated. And such a person is called a Jivan Mukta. Enjoying the freedom of a bird, while living, one can be free from anxiety, whether the stock market crashes or not, whether recession comes or not, whether one's wife or husband is good or not, whether one gets a terminal disease or not. There are only two people who can be like this, who can totally be unaffected. The first person is a Jivan Mukta. And the second person is a madman. everybody else gets affected very, very badly. Everyone else gets very strongly affected. So we are unfortunately stuck in between. We are neither mad people nor are we Jivan Mukta. Therefore, we are always affected by anything that happens to us. Someone speaks something or someone does something, we lose sleep, we lose our health, tremendous effect on our bodies of mental stress. A Jivan Mukta is free all the time. During his life, he is unaffected, and after life, he is unaffected. Immediately, when they leave this body, they fly like a bird and go and sit at the lotus feet of the Lord. That's what a Jivan Mukta is. There was once a man who was in a prison for a long period of time. And as an act of grace, on his birthday, the king said, I'll release you out of the prison. But he told the prisoner, I'll give you 5 chances to get out of jail. Only thing is that you'll be blindfolded. They'll put a blindfold around his neck. And the prison cell was big. He had to somehow find the door and get out. If he manages to find that little door and gets out of it, he's free to walk out. But if he doesn't find that door and doesn't get out on time, then he can't walk out. Then he'll have to remain in the prison only. Now this prisoner, he was excited about the possibility of walking out of the prison. So they blindfolded him and they turned him around here and there. And they told him, figure out. So now he didn't know which direction he was in. He didn't know the orientation. So he began to touch. He was walked to one corner, began to touch the wall. And he was walking all around, just waiting for that gap to come in where he can walk out of the door. Exactly when he reached the door, about to touch the door to feel it, and he wouldn't have felt anything because there was no door there. The door was open. Just when he was about to touch, a fly came and sat on his face, and he swatted the fly. And in that moment, he lost the door, and he walked aside. Then he went all around and came back all the way along the wall, and finally he came exactly to the door. Then he suddenly got a scratch on his head, and he began to scratch his head. 5 times he tried, and 5 different distractions happened, and he missed the door. Krishna has given us this human life, and through seva, the doors of liberation are open by serving great souls, by practicing on spiritual life, by chanting the holy names of the Lord. Every time we decide we want to practice spiritual life, there will be one fly that will come and sit on you, and you lose the momentum, and somehow you just get distracted, and you lose the focus. Like this, we lose many chances of becoming liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Someone who is a liberated soul, such a person has some criteria that he fulfills. Krishna explains in the 17th verse of this chapter who is liberated. So Krishna says, Tad buddhayascha tad atmanas, tad nityascha tad parayanam, gachanti apunar avatarena jnana niruddhata kalmano. He says, a person whose mind, intelligence, and faith is fixed and directed properly, such a person is a liberated soul. So, here, the idea of which aspect of the Lord should we fix our intelligence on? The first thing that a liberated soul focuses on is the Lord's impartiality. The Lord is impartial and equal to everyone. We are not impartial even to our kids. In fact, if one child is very intelligent, we give more attention and more love to that particular child. If one child is more well-behaved, we end up giving more attention and love to that child. We are partial to our relatives. We are partial to people that we connect with. We think about how do we favor someone and how we don't favor someone. The key is to focus on the impartial nature of the Lord. If you desire and you deserve, He sanctions this. No one is favorite and no one is not. A lot of people, when they pray, they often pray that the Lord becomes favorable to them. Like, for example, when the World War II was taking place, the German ladies were praying to God, please save our husbands. And the Japanese ladies were praying to God, please save our husbands. Now, which prayer the God will listen to? Should he listen to the prayers of the Japanese people? Should he listen to the prayers of the German people? The Lord doesn't listen to either of their prayers. He focuses on what you desire and what you deserve, and He sanctions it. As simple as that. The Lord is impartial. Just like a dog needs to be trained, similarly, intelligence needs to be trained to be impartial. So, the Lord is impartial like the sky. All the birds can fly in the sky. Why a chicken cannot fly and an eagle can fly? It is not dependent on the sky. It is dependent on the ability of the bird. Whether we reach the sky or not, or whether we reach the Lord or not, doesn't depend on the Lord. It depends on our ability. Whether we want to remain a chicken or we want to become an eagle. The Lord is impartial like the sun. The owl hates sunlight, and the lotus loves sunlight. The sun is impartial to both. The owl decides not to be in sunlight. That's the decision of the owl. The Lord is like a judge. The man decides to commit a crime or not. The Lord is like a judge. According to what is right, what is wrong, He gives judgments. He doesn't have sides. He doesn't favor. The Lord is like a father, impartial and available to all the kids. By chanting the holy names of the Lord and fixing our intelligence on the Lord, we also can become impartial. Life is too short to hold misgivings among each other. Let us learn from the Lord to be impartial. We may not be equal to everyone, but can't we just be kind to everyone? But the misgivings in our heart don't allow us to be kind. Sometimes the person whom we hate, though that person, actually, you realize life teaches you the most powerful lessons through the very people you hate the most. In fact, those you hate the most, they teach you the most valuable lessons in life, isn't it? A grateful heart does not complain. A grateful heart does not compare. And a grateful heart does not criticize. From the Lord, we can learn this mood of gratitude and this mood of impartiality in our consciousness. When we deal with people nicely, we bring out the best out of them. And when we deal with people badly, we bring out the worst out of them. When we deal with people nicely, the misgivings in our hearts go away. And then if we deal with the Lord nicely and see the impartial nature of the Lord, naturally our misgivings will go away, isn't it? So, Prabhupada, he talks about how in every human being, every person, there is a good and bad element in it. And it all depends on how we magnify, what aspect of a person we magnify. So if Krishna sees our faults, is there any hope for us? There is absolutely no hope for us, because we will see there will be too many faults that Krishna will be able to notice. The Lord has two forms. One is Jagannath and the other is Ranganath. Jagannath, the form of Lord known as Jagannath, his eyes are so huge. I don't know if you have ever seen the photos of Jagannath or deities of Jagannath. The eyes are huge and there is no eyelids. Jagannath doesn't have eyelids, which means he doesn't close his eyes ever. And there's another form of the Lord known as Ranganath. Ranganath is in a sleeping posture and his eyes are closed usually. So now, why is Jagannath's eyes so open and why is Ranganath's eyes closed? Because it is explained that whenever a devotee does anything good, even a little bit of good, the Lord keeps his eyes open and is watching very carefully. Every single little good that you do in this world, the Lord is very carefully watching. And anyone who does anything bad, any devotee who does something bad, the Lord immediately closes his eyes. He becomes Ranganath. The Lord is not interested in seeing the faults of his devotees. The Lord is only focused on seeing the good in his devotees. And similarly, a liberated soul is like the Lord who has equal vision. And he learns to look at everyone with an equal vision. So liberated soul not only has equal vision towards everyone in this world, but the liberated soul understands that even the Lord has equal vision. The Atma and the Paramatma are compared to two birds in a tree. There are two birds sitting on a tree. There is one bird who is jumping around from one branch to another, eating all the fruits in the tree. Sometimes when he tastes the fruits, the fruit tastes bitter. And sometimes when he tastes the fruit tastes sweet. Some fruits are bitter, some fruits are sweet. This bird keeps jumping from one branch to another, keeps eating different fruits, hoping that the next fruit is sweet. But in the process of jumping from one branch to another, eating different fruits, some of the fruits are good, some of the fruits are bad. Sometimes the bird enjoys, sometimes the bird suffers. But the Paramatma, the other bird, is not eating any of the fruits of the tree. The second bird is only watching the first bird and waiting for the first bird to turn towards it. So Krishna is absolutely neutral and watching all of us. We are all trying all different stunts in this world. Sometimes we're enjoying something, sometimes we're suffering some things, but we keep trying to eat different fruits of this tree just to somehow try to enjoy ourselves. So the Supreme Lord the first symptom of a liberated soul is that he is like the Supreme Lord. He sees every living being with equal vision, and he tries to emulate and be inspired by the Lord, seeing the impartiality of the Lord in treating everyone with an equal vision. Not only the Lord is having equal vision, but a great devotee like the Lord also has equal vision. The next verse, Krishna speaks a very beautiful verse. In fact, this verse is one of the foundational verses of the Gita. Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gavi Hastine, Suni Chaiva Supakecha, Pandita Samadarshini. So Krishna is saying that a liberated soul, he is equal in his vision when he looks at all living entities. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Vidya means knowledge. Vinaya Sampanne means anyone who is knowledgeable. Such a person is also filled with humility. Vinaya means humility. And he says, Brahmane Gavi Hastine, Suni Cheva Sopakecha, which means a person who has knowledge, he sees everyone with an equal vision. He doesn't discriminate between a human and an animal. He doesn't discriminate between Hindu, Muslim. He doesn't discriminate between people who are staying in different countries. He doesn't discriminate between people having different nationalities. He doesn't discriminate between people who have different eating habits. So he has equal vision in his heart. And his equal vision is based on the presence of the soul within the body. And he also sees the Paramatma within the body. And he sees the impartiality of the Paramatma. Such a person is filled with humility and knowledge. So, all of us in this world, we somehow or the other, we make discrimination, isn't it? Friend, enemy, good, bad. Nice person, not so nice person. So we make a lot of discriminations based on how they reciprocate with us, based on my connection with that person and my relationship with that person. But a liberated soul has equal vision. He is impartial like the Lord, and he looks at everyone with an equal vision. This is the first symptom of a liberated soul. The second symptom of a liberated soul is that not only he has equal vision towards people, but he has equal vision towards situations of life. Having equal vision to people is one level of this symptom of a liberated soul. But having an equal vision towards different situations in life, that's another level of of a liberated soul. What do you mean by different? What do you mean by equal vision towards different situations in life? There are some situations we like. There are some situations we don't like, isn't it? If somebody one day tells you that you have got an inheritance of 1 crore rupees, what will be your reaction? Obviously, you'll be happy. You'll be jumping in joy. And suppose tomorrow somebody tells you, you have a loan that your great grandfather has to pay, and now you have to pay 1 crore rupees. What will be your reaction? You'll be miserable, isn't it? A liberated soul is unaffected by both. A liberated soul is someone who has equal vision towards both. And such a liberated soul is called a Jivan Mukta. The reason a liberated soul is able to be like this is because a liberated soul understands the concept of happiness very nicely. Because a liberated soul understands the concept of happiness, therefore, he is able to have equal vision in every situation in life. The third symptom of a liberated soul is that he understands the concept of happiness, where it lies and where it does not lie. People usually always have a wrong equation of happiness. One of our very exalted leaders, Devamrit Swami, he says, there are only two places in this world where there is unlimited happiness available. One is in Golok Vrindavan, the spiritual world, and second is in your imagination. Everywhere else, there is limited happiness available. So obviously, we are not in Golok Vrindavan, and we are very far away from Golok Vrindavan. So right now, the only place where unlimited happiness is available is in our mind, is in our imaginations. If you're passing by a mall, and you see all these different fascinating products, and you're thinking of buying these things, and if you think that if I buy this particular product, I'll be so happy, it's only in your imagination. The day you buy it, that's when you start seeing all the problems in the product. Go and buy a bag. You see the bag, it looks like the perfect bag you can have. You buy it and get it back home. You open the zip, immediately the zipper breaks open. That's when the problem begins, isn't it? As long as you see it on the shelves, it looks fascinating. But the moment you buy it and get it home, that's when the problem starts, starting. So as soon as you get it, it gives you worries, it gives you anxieties, it gives you unnecessary troubles. Young boys and girls, when they're thinking about marriage, so much excitement. But when you actually get married, conditions apply. So many problems, that come along with it. So a liberated soul is very intelligent because he understands what is the source of happiness and what is not the source of happiness. The next verse, Krishna speaks a very beautiful verse where he's talking about the third concept or the third symptom of a liberated soul. He says, Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonev evate. Adi antavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. So here the Lord is explaining what is not the source of happiness first. So he's saying, what is the first meaning of this sentence of this verse is Yahi samsparshaja bhoga. The word sparsha means touch, and samsparshaja means something born out of touch. When senses come in touch with sense objects, there is pleasure. Any kind of touch, to the tongue, any nice thing you put in the mouth, it gives you a pleasure. When you hear some nice melodious music goes touches the ears, gives you pleasure. When a fragrant smell enters your nostril, gives you great pleasure. When you see something extremely beautiful, gives you pleasure. When you touch something soft, it gives you pleasure. So basically, this touch is what is called as sparsha. And Krishna is saying, Yahi samsparsha javoga. So any touch of senses with sense objects gives you pleasure. Bhoga. Yahi samsparsha javoga. Bhoga means pleasure. But Krishna says, Yahi samsparsha javoga dukkha yoneva evate. He's saying, the problem with this pleasure is that it is a source of misery and pain. Why is this pleasure a source of misery and pain? The pleasure is a source of misery and pain because of three things. Krishna explains three reasons why this pleasure is a source of misery and pain. Which pleasure? The pleasure of senses coming in touch with sense objects. Krishna says, Adi antavanta kaunteya. Adi means beginning and anta means end. So what is Krishna saying is that whenever we experience pleasure from the senses coming in touch with sense objects, it creates happiness that has a beginning, it has an end. Like for example, everything that we begin always ends, isn't it? When a relationship begins, it is so exciting. But when a relationship ends, so much suffering. When you taste some food item, it's very pleasurable. Like say, for example, if you take the first bite of a gulab jamun, so much pleasure. As soon as you bite into the gulab jamun, your mouth is filled with so much pleasure. The second bite of the gulab jamun doesn't give you as much pleasure as the first bite. The third bite gives you a little lesser pleasure than the second bite. By the time you finish the gulab jamun, it's not as tasty as the first bite. And if you eat the second gulab jamun, it definitely doesn't taste the same as the first gulab jamun, right? The experience of pleasure is already less. And imagine you're eating the 10th gulab jamun in a sequence. You're already miserable. If anybody has eaten more than 3-4 gulab jamuns, you'll understand what I'm saying. You eat more of it, you will go mad. It's so painful, actually. You can kill a person by just feeding him gulab jamuns. Adi antavanta kaunteya means anything that is connected to the body has a beginning and an end. So Krishna is telling, why is Krishna telling us all these things? Just to wake us up from our complacency. Look at any other aspect of life that is a beginning. Like say, for example, you have a 5-week working day. Monday to Friday you work. How do you feel on a Friday evening? So excited, isn't it? How do you feel on a Monday morning? Miserable, isn't it? It's exactly how it is. Everything has a beginning, everything has an end. Adi antavanta kaunteya. Everything that originates from senses coming in touch with sense objects, the bhoga, the pleasure that originates from senses coming in touch with sense objects, has a beginning, has an end. That's the first reason. The second reason is that there will always be something or someone that will spoil our experience of pleasure. There was one little boy that went to a birthday party. And this little boy, when he was invited to this birthday party, the only thing that he uh, went for was because he was told there is a chocolate cake in the end. When they cut the cake, everyone will get a big piece of chocolate cake. Oh, this boy was so excited because he loved chocolate cakes. And when he went over there, he kept looking at the chocolate cake, hoping when they will cut it. After 2-3 hours, finally the time came for cutting the cake. And this boy was so excited, waiting in line. And they cut the cake. And then finally he was given a big chunk of the cake on his plate. And imagine the excitement of this boy, waiting to eat this cake for a long time. Took the cake and put it in his mouth. When he bit it, his mouth turned disgusted. Because somehow when they bake the cake, instead of putting sugar, they put citric acid in it. And they bake the cake with something else, basically. The cake was tasting so disgusting. And this boy thought maybe this side of the cake is bad. Let me turn the side and bite the cake from another side. He bit the cake from the other side. There also it is as bad. So somehow we all have so much expectations from this world. We are so excited about enjoying everything that this world is offering us. But the moment you try to enjoy, the moment you try to experience, there will always be someone or something that will make your experience of life miserable. Every one of us have at least one person in our life who has been allotted to us to only make our life miserable. Each and every person has at least one person assigned specifically to us for that job. The material world doesn't allow us to be happy. There will always be someone that is there to checkmate you. That is always there to ensure that your experience of joy is limited. The third reason why the experience of senses coming in touch with sense objects is it ends at some point, is that the contacts of the senses and sense objects can never touch the heart. It at max can reach the mind. Satisfaction and fulfillment in this world can only come when the heart experiences it. And the primary need of the heart is to love and to be loved. So the more we are looking for external things, it will never touch the heart. And therefore, Krishna ends this verse by saying, Na teshu ramate buddha. What is the meaning of Na teshu ramate buddha? Means that a liberated soul is someone who does not look for happiness in senses coming in touch with sense objects. Which means he does not look for happiness which is external, based on external things, based on external relationships, which is based on external dependencies. But such a person, such a liberated soul, looks for happiness from within. Na teshu ramate buddha. Buddha means intelligent person. An intelligent person or a liberated soul looks for happiness, which is ramana. The word ramana means pleasure in Sanskrit. Ramante yogino nityam satyananda siddhatmani iti ramapadaneshu param brahma vidiyate. So what it simply means is that most people in this world, while most people in this world look for happiness outside based on external things, a liberated soul looks for happiness inside. In Sanskrit, there are two words to describe the concept of happiness. The first word is sukha, and the second word is ananda. The word sukha means happiness. The word ananda also seems to be happiness. What is the difference between the two? There's a big difference. The word sukha refers to happiness that originates from outside. The definition of sukha is a gap between two miseries. Right now I'm miserable. After some time I'm miserable. Between the two miseries, what I experience is happiness. Like all of us experienced one wave of corona, and after some time another wave of corona came. A little 1 or 2 months in between, that is what sukha is, basically. Yeah. This is a more practical way of explaining what sukha means because we understand this even better now. So in the olden times, when kings would punish criminals, what they would do was they would dunk the head of the criminal into the water. And when this fellow is almost about to die, they pull him out. And he would breathe for one moment. Again, they would dunk him in. That little gap that he had in between, when he's breathing, that's sukha. All of us, we are miserable normally. And then in between the two miseries, we experience little pleasure. And that's what is sukha. It very much depends on external things. But ananda is something that originates from within. Ananda doesn't depend on things. Ananda is a state of mind, is a state of the heart. It does not depend on external things. It depends on your internal consciousness. It depends on your internal state of mind. And that is what a liberated soul focuses on. The liberated soul does not focus on the concept of happiness that is based on externals, but focus on the concept of happiness that is based on internals. Doesn't look for sukha, but rather he looks for ananda. And the fourth symptom of a liberated soul is that a liberated soul has the ability to tolerate the urges. So every one of us have very intense urges, which are very difficult to bear many times. Most often people listen to the mind and become slave of the mind. The senses demand gratification. Krishna consciousness is not against the gratification, but it allows gratification in a proper way that reaches our heart, and not in an improper way that reaches our mind and ends. There will always be urges of the senses. But what is life? Life is simply about saying yes to what we should be saying yes to, and saying no to what we should be saying no to. The problem with all of us is that we say yes to what we should say no to, and we say no to what we should say yes to. If somebody calls you in the middle of the night to a movie, we say yes, yes, you go. If somebody calls you early in the morning to a temple, we say no, no, and don't go. What we're supposed to be saying yes to, we end up saying no to. And what we're supposed to be saying no to, we end up saying yes to. A liberated soul simply knows what to say yes to and what to say no to. And that's what a liberated soul is. Tolerating the urges of the senses simply means knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no. As simple as that. There was a sadhu who was living in a hermitage in the middle of a town. A dhobi come in front of him every day and pull the tail of the donkey and ask him whether his beard is better or the tail of the donkey is better. Now the sadhu would always tell the tail of the donkey is better. 10 years this man asked him the same question every day. One day the sadhu said, my beard is better. So this man was confused. After 10 years, why is this sadhu saying, my beard is better? This man asked the sadhu, why are you saying like that? The sadhu explained, the doctor just saw me and he said, I have only 15 hours to live. Till today, I was not sure whether I would fall prey to temptations. Today I'm dying. So I can confidently say that my beard is better. We all want to say, one day not having fallen prey to temptations, tolerating the struggles that come in life, that day we can actually say that I am a liberated soul. Till that, better not to be sure. Better to say that I am not sure. Better to say that I am not a liberated soul. How to tolerate nicely? I'm going to tell you all two very nice, very interesting ways how you can tolerate in life. The first way to tolerate nicely is based on the conviction of the head. The more we hear, the more we are convinced based on our Shastra, based on our scriptures. There are four things to our conviction. The first thing is, let me tolerate it. It is temporary. The most hope-giving thing in this world is that everything is temporary, including misery. A lot of people, when they are miserable, when they go through pain and suffering in life, they think that this pain and suffering is never going to end. My dear friends, please know, there is nothing called permanent in this world. Everything is temporary, including misery. Right now, if you're miserable, simply tell yourself, this is temporary. The second thing is that we have only a few more years to go in life. Life will end. Life is too short to carry grudges. The third thing that you can tell yourself for you to be able to tolerate based on the conviction of the head is that whatever happens, we can have a smile on our face and thank God for giving only this much. It could have been worse. And the fourth thing is, when we know by tolerating all this, it will bring a smile on the face of the Lord. That is a great inspiration to tolerate. When we tolerate and we know that by tolerating, we're going to bring a smile on the face of our teachers, of our guru, that is a great source of inspiration to tolerate. Tolerance, which is based on conviction, is called austerity. So this is conviction based on the head. But there's a second way to tolerate, based on the contentment of the heart. So the first way to tolerate is based on conviction of the head. But the second way to tolerate is based on the contentment of the heart. One who is contented with what he has. When we serve others, Krishna puts in our heart a deep sense of contentment and fulfillment. When we chant, when we associate with the devotees, when we serve others, Krishna puts in our heart a deep sense of contentment and fulfillment. Tolerance based on such contentment of the heart is called a higher taste. So we can either choose to be tolerant based on conviction of the head, or we can choose to be tolerant based on the contentment of the heart. Either ways, the ability to tolerate nicely is a symptom of a liberated soul. Someone who is a liberated soul has the ability to tolerate the forces and urges of the material world. And finally, the fifth and the most beautiful aspect of, or rather a beautiful symptom of a liberated soul is that a liberated soul is constantly looking for welfare of others. Psychologists call our generation as the I generation. We're always thinking about ourselves, isn't it? That's why iPhones and iPads and iWatches are so famous. Everybody's thinking about themselves, isn't it? And as soon as we start living even a little bit for the welfare of others, the satisfaction is unexplainable. If we can't can't bring happiness to other people's lives, let us at least not cause them misery. The best welfare is not just giving things. The best welfare that you can do for the world is by giving Krishna to others. So a liberated soul is constantly thinking of ways in which he can give Krishna to others. He can give the highest level of knowledge, satisfaction, pleasure, direction, and meaning to other people in their lives. And that gives the liberated soul great pleasure and satisfaction. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. With this, we come to the last part of the 5th chapter, which we will complete the next time. At this point in time, if anybody has any quick questions or comments to share, please do so now. You can just put up your hand and ask questions if there are any. No questions? Okay. Nagesh, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, sorry if this may be a silly question, but you mentioned that God is impartial. I believe so. But there is also a sort of a cheat wherein he mentions it various places in Gita about certain people who are extremely dear to him, people with certain characteristics. These are extremely dear to me. So how does this balance out with the impartiality aspect of Paramatma? Thank you.
So, in the official role, Paramatma is impartial. But in an unofficial role, the Lord is very partial to his devotees. So, if you look at the very official way of looking at things, like if you go to a judge in the courtroom, he is very impartial. Everybody he treats equally. But if somebody is a relative of the judge, child of the judge, or grandson of the judge, you think the judge is going to be impartial there? He will obviously be partial to people he loves, isn't it? So the Lord is impartial in an official way. But the devotees of the Lord have a very personal relationship with him. So that doesn't come in the Bhagavad Gita. That doesn't come in. So the Bhagavad Gita is a law book. Right? It doesn't talk about exceptions. But you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find all the exceptions there. That's the case studies.
Thank you.
So the Bhagavad Gita will give you rules and sections and rules. But the Bhagavatam will give you how to apply those rules in your life in a very interesting way so that you can get the best of it.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Any other questions or comments? Yes, Kaur.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, so you specified something about like there's one person in everyone's life who is there to help us like learn the art of tolerance, because that's the person who will help us to learn from various things. How do we pray for that person, and how do we tolerate things, and how do we learn from that individual, whoever that person could be, and like maybe that or so anyone else in person also?
One of the most important things is that anyone who is seemingly bad to us, we don't have to hate that person. Maybe that person is teaching us the most powerful lessons of our life that we have to learn, So, unfortunately, that person is teaching us in a bad way, but teaching nonetheless, right? So, if I focus on the teaching part, then I don't focus on the methodology. I focus on the learning. So, unfortunately, we want to be taught in a most pampered way. Some of the best teachers in this world don't teach us in a pampered way. They teach us in a very ruthless and a very, very, bad way, basically. So, by focusing on the teaching, by focusing on the learning, by focusing on the lesson that is there inside it, you don't get affected by the person. Easy to say, but when it happens to you, it's very difficult to live by it. Okay. Rakhi?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, just going back to the first question about partial and impartiality. But isn't it also true that, in Gita, Krishna keeps saying that, my devotees, I am very dear to my devotees, but he's giving a very clear-cut way on how to become a good devotee, first of all, a dear devotee. So he's still remaining impartial, no, in a way.
Correct.
That he's
Correct.
saying that he will remain impartial to his devotees. He will. These devotees are very dear to him, provided you learn to become that devotee.
Correct. That's another way of looking at it.
I mean, rather than looking at like exception, I would say that he is motivating us that you become that dear devotee, so that I will, I will give you that love and impartiality.
Correct. Correct. So the Bhagavatam stories are not repetitive. It's not that, when you read the Bhagavatam stories, it will happen to you. Not necessary. The Bhagavatam stories, the exceptions are to tell you that exceptionally, see that such things happen. But you don't hope for exception to happen in your life.
Yeah, because, personally, I see Bhagavatam and I read Bhagavatam. Personally, I see, like how I feel Bhagavatam in a way is glorification of such exalted devotees. That
Correct.
they were, because they were such exalted devotees, because they exhibited that love, for Lord, because they followed the tenets of Gita, that
Correct.
they are now sung.
Correct.
I mean, my way of looking at it is little like, like different, because I'm just looking.
You're right. You're right. I don't think it's any different in that. It's absolutely what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ashu?
Yeah. So, in continuation of second question, like how to tolerate some people which make your life miserable. So my question is how we can do that based on contentment of heart rather than head, because I think based on head it's very transient because you have to do every day. But how we can do better on the basis of contentment of heart for our satisfaction.
So, essentially, contentment of the heart simply means that we take shelter of the Lord within our hearts through spiritual practices. When we take shelter of the Lord within our heart through spiritual practices, through serving other people, through selfless actions from our side, then Krishna puts contentment in our hearts. It is not directly by dealing with somebody. It is not by directly dealing with someone who is troubling you. So this is like an indirect way, a completely tangential way of approaching a problem. So it seems that I am chanting the holy names of the Lord. It seems that I am attending satsang. It seems that I am doing some seva. How is it connected with, dealing with the problem that I'm facing today? It's not directly connected, but it's indirectly connected. And when you do it that way, you experience something in your heart that completely helps you deal with something that you are grossly dealing with on an external level. That's what I meant. I hope it helped.
Yeah, thank you.
Vadiraj is asking, I need more clarity on Jagannath and Ranganath. Jagannath blesses his devotees, Ranganath forgives his devotees. Is it not against virtues and vices? So that's Vadiraj, it's a very allegorical way of putting it. I don't mean to say that, Jagannath is merciful, looking at the good in people, and Ranganath is not looking at the bad in people. It's not like that. It's just a more allegorical way of putting it. Basically, the point is that the Lord is very merciful to people, to everyone. Apparently, if a devotee makes a mistake also, the Lord understands. The mistakes do happen. The Lord is not a sadist waiting for you to make a mistake and shoot you. He is a very kind-hearted person. If you do make a mistake, he understands it's difficult. And because he loves you so much, he's ready to not focus on your shortcomings, but focus on your contribution. So that is the way I understand Krishna. That is the way I would, like to share Krishna with others. So I hope that clarifies your doubt and your question. Okay. Right in the beginning of the session, Rakhi sent me a question here. I'll answer that, Rakhi. I've been trying to catch up on the earliest lectures that I missed as I joined this invaluable course late. While explaining Mahabharata, you had mentioned about the verses, which were like riddles. And in fact, you spoke of one. Would you be able to tell me which verse was it and where can I find more verses like this to see how they were written? So that particular verse that I quoted is from Mahabharata. I can try to find out which verse it is in the Mahabharata. But totally in the 100,000 verses of the Mahabharata, Vyasdev wrote about 8,800 such verses. They are known as Kuta Shlokas. They are strewn all over the Mahabharata. So I don't think there is anyone who has made a compilation of all those 8,000. At least I have not come across any such compilation of those 8,800 verses. But as you read the Mahabharata, you will find a verse that you don't understand. That's one of those, basically. That's the way it is. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for enthusiastically participating. Next Tuesday and the Tuesday after that, we will not be having a live class, but we'll be dropping audio lectures because I'm traveling. I'm doing some seminars. Next Tuesday, I'll be doing a 6-hour session in Madurai. And the week after that, I'll be in Vrindavan on a yatra. But we'll make sure that the Gita classes continue and you are inspired with the knowledge of the Gita. And then we'll meet you again in the new year. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All the very best to all of you all. And a very happy new year. Hare Krishna.